Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the NFL slate for week 2. We have a 13-game main slate for this week. Definitely another nice slate. There's potential value on this slate. There's a lot of injuries we're going to have to talk about at each position. There's injuries at quarterback, receiver. I think there's even some running back injuries we're definitely going to need to talk about as well. So it's a good slate. Before we do get started, though, guys, would really appreciate it if you would give the video a like. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Would really appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, how we do these videos or how I do the videos, go through each position. I'll talk about quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, tight end, go through each position, defense, talk about some of my favorite plays at each price tier, some of my favorite top-tier quarterbacks, favorite mid-tier quarterbacks. If there's value at quarterback, I'll talk about that as well. Do that for each position. Then as we go, I'll give 5 of some of my favorite plays for this week. These are going to be 5 guys that I'm going to have plenty of exposure to in my tournament lineups. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Look at quarterback for this week. Drew Brees, our most expensive quarterback on the slate, coming off a great week 1 performance where he put up 34 DraftKings points. He gets another pretty good matchup this week at home against the Browns. If I'm going to pay up for quarterback this week, Drew Brees would be my favorite option, but I don't love paying up for quarterback. I like some of the value. I'll have Brees in some tournament lineups for sure. But for my 5 plays, I actually think I want to go cheap at quarterback this week. We do have potential injuries, though, up top here. Aaron Rodgers, questionable against the Vikings. I don't think I was going to have much interest in Rodgers, even if he played. If he's out, Deshaun Kaiser will most likely start, and I'm definitely not playing Kaiser. But the Vikings defense, if Rodgers is out, could arguably be the best defense option on the slate. We'll talk about them when we get to defense. But just at quarterback, if I'm paying up top, Brees is my favorite option. But like I said, I like some of the value. Going down a little bit cheaper, like in this mid-range, some potential options that we could target here. You do have Kirk Cousins against the Packers. I do like that matchup for Kirk Cousins if you want to go to him at 6,400. He's a mid-tier play that I like. Brady is very cheap this week, but he has a tough matchup against the Jaguars. I think Brady might be a fade for me this week. I doubt I'm going to have hardly any exposure to him. Against the Jaguars, that's just a really, really tough matchup. Don't know if I want to go there. Patrick Mahomes, at 6,100, do like him as a tournament play. That's a potential shootout between the Steelers and Chiefs. Mahomes looked great against the Chargers, 28 DraftKings points in week 1. I'll have a Mahomes to Tyreek Hill stack in at least one tournament lineup, if not multiple. Like Mahomes at 6,100. He's probably one of my favorite value options if you're going a little bit cheaper. But another value play I really like this week is Tyrod Taylor at 5,900 in another game that has a potential to shoot out, this Browns-Saints game. Love this game as a game stack. I love Taylor at 5,900. Love playing this guy in DFS. He just has so much upside. Obviously, he has rushing upside, which is great for fantasy. In week 1's game against the Steelers, he rushed for 77 yards, did score. He rushed the ball 8 times. Also threw for 197 yards and a passing touchdown as well. Put up 24 DraftKings points, I believe. That's what he put up week 1 against the Steelers. And that was a really bad game, just like game environment when it comes to weather and stuff. Raining all during that game. For this week, Tyrod Taylor and the Browns get to play in a dome where it's going to be obviously nice weather. Dome games tend to always shoot out. And this game right now does have, I believe, the second highest total on this slate at 50. The highest total right now is 52.5, which is between the Chiefs and the Steelers. That's another game stack I like. But this game between the Browns and Saints is a game you can stack. Imagine the Browns are going to be playing from behind, so they're probably going to have to throw. Really like Tyrod Taylor as a cheap option. Like Mahomes as a cheap option. Those are 2 guys I feel like I'm going to have a lot of exposure to if I'm looking for a cheap quarterback. I don't think there's really any punt plays like in this mid 5K range. Like Fitzpatrick put up 45 DraftKings points week 1. I'm not playing Fitzpatrick this week. I'll let all the fish chase that. Against the Eagles, I'm easily going to fade Fitzpatrick. He's not a guy that I'm going to be looking at. Just don't like a lot of value here. Like Sam Darnold, I don't think I'm going to have much exposure to Sam Darnold. He's 5,100. He is a cheap option you could consider. But like I like this like high 5K range, low 6K range where you have Taylor, you have Mahomes, obviously. Even maybe a guy like Alex Smith gets a really good matchup at home against the Colts. You could play Alex Smith at 6K. I think he's a value option. And you obviously have Brees up top, who's a good play as well. But those are kind of the quarterbacks I feel like I'm going to be on this week. Let's go ahead and move to running back, where we have Alvin Kamara at 9,500, who's coming off a 46-point DraftKings point game. I believe he scored 3 total touchdowns against the Bucs. Just looked really good. I'm going back to the well on Kamara. 9,500, he got priced up, but in this matchup at home in a potential shootout against the Browns. I love Kamara again. The dude he's going to get so much volume. The only thing that does concern me here, if the Saints are up like 2 touchdowns, maybe they don't give Kamara as much snaps. When the Bucks got up and the Saints were playing from behind, you love to see that if you roster Kamara because he's mostly involved in the passing game. That's where he's really good. Looks like he had nine catches and 8 carries, so he got 17 total touches, which isn't a ton of touches. But this guy's just so efficient, and they involve him in the red zone, whether he runs the ball in the red zone, whether he's like running routes in the red zone. Kamara just has touchdown upside. He's just involved in the offense a lot, so I really like him at 9,500 against the Browns. Good matchup there. People might go to Todd Gurley against the Cardinals at 9,200 for a little bit cheaper. If you want more volume, if you want more carries, more targets, you could probably consider Gurley, but Kamara just has so much upside. 46-point DraftKings point day. I don't know if anybody besides Le'Veon Bell's ever put up 46 DK points before. Just love Kamara. You could go to Gurley, but Kamara is definitely my favorite play if I'm paying up. There's good mid-tier plays, though. Really like Melvin Gordon, 7,400 against the Bills. That's a really good matchup for Melvin Gordon. He feels a little bit underpriced at 7,400. He's going to be a really popular play, and I will have plenty of exposure to Gordon. Christian McCaffrey's facing a Falcons team that gives up a ton of passes to running backs. McCaffrey's in a really good spot at 7K in another potential shootout game. You also have James Conner down here at 6,700, who might be too cheap this week against the Chiefs in a potential shootout. Conner put up 38 DraftKings points against the Browns week 1, got a ton of volume. He carried the ball 31 times. I believe he also got 6 targets. He pretty much touched the ball nearly 40 times, which is just insane. If Conner's going to continue to get 30, 40 touches every week with Le'Veon Bell out, he's going to be a guy we have to consider. I would not be surprised if he puts up another solid game. If we see his price like 9K, he might honestly be one of the more expensive running backs for week 3. As long as he's getting this volume, which I imagine he's going to be, then we have to consider James Conner here. It's 6,700 for a guy that's going to get 30 touches. He's too cheap. You should be playing James Conner again this week as long as Le'Veon Bell remains out. Love Conner at 6,700. He might be lower owned than he should be since you have McCaffrey there. You have Melvin Gordon there. You've got like Jay Ajayi for a little bit cheaper. You got Dalvin Cook for a little bit cheaper. Conner might come in at like 15% ownership when he should really be like 25-30 in my opinion. I'm going to have a ton of Conner this week. Going to have a ton of Kamara. Going to go right back to that running back pairing that I had a lot of in week 1. Both of these guys are in another great spots. So yeah, really like Conner in that mid-tier. We do have some value though, potential value at least. Running back Devontae Freeman, questionable against the Panthers. We don't have that news as I'm recording this video Tuesday whether or not he's going to play. If Devontae Freeman is out, you've got Tevin Coleman, who becomes a really good value at 5,300. If Freeman is out, we could possibly consider him. Also have Leonard Fournette questionable against the Patriots, so at 5,600. TJ Yeldon got a ton of carries and a ton of work when Fournette went out of the game week 1. If Fournette's out for week 2, TJ Yeldon at 5,600. Him and Tevin Coleman are great values in that 5K range if you're looking to go there. Adrian Peterson, right, sandwiched in between them at 5,500. You can play this guy. He's getting the work for the Redskins. He gets a good matchup here against the Colts. Definitely like Adrian Peterson as a cheap option, 5,500. If I can't use Yeldon, if Fournette plays, and if Freeman plays and I can't use Yeldon or Coleman, I will definitely be looking to Adrian Peterson at 5,500 as a cheap value. But like sub 5K, I don't think there's a lot I love here. You've got Breida, who you could use against the Lions, but he did split a lot of work with Alfred Morris. I think they pretty much both got like the same amount of carries. It looks like Breida rushed the ball 11 times. Alfred Morris got 12 carries, so Breida got 11 carries, Morris got 12 carries. Don't know if we really want to attack that situation when two guys are splitting work. But he is in a good matchup against the Lions. The Lions just looked atrocious Monday night. They're definitely probably going to be a team we want to attack this year. Isaiah Crowell looked really good Monday night against the Lions. He gets a good matchup here against the Dolphins at home. 4,600. He could potentially be a value play if you want to go down that cheap. But I think that's it for running backs, at least the ones I feel like I'm going to be on this week. So let's go ahead and move on to receiver, where we do have Antonio Brown up top here against the Chiefs. I do like Antonio Brown this week at 8,800. If you can fit him in, you can definitely go to him. I'm sure I'm going to have a stack where I probably fade Kamara and play like Big Ben with Antonio Brown. Just because AB has so much upside, especially when he's at home. We know the Steelers play really well at home. I do like AB if you're paying up, Love Michael Thomas as well. Michael Thomas in a great spot against the Browns. Him and Drew Brees, I said at the beginning, I'm going to have that stack in at least one lineup. Just because Thomas, the dude's going to get targets every week. And especially when the Saints are at home, I like to target them at home. I like Brown and Thomas. Then you've also got Julio Jones as well, who we know just crushes, especially when he's at home. 31 DraftKings points week 1 in a tough matchup against the Eagles. Now he gets to face the Panthers. Not the best matchup, but we saw Julio. I know last year or 2 years ago, he just absolutely torched the Panthers for like 200 plus yards. Dude put up like 50, 60 DraftKings points against the Panthers a couple years ago at home. You could play Julio here. Matt Ryan honestly might be in play this week. I haven't looked at his price, but that's another game that could potentially shoot out. Then you got DeAndre Hopkins. Like, there's just a ton of expensive receivers I like this week. But I think I'm still going to put the expensive running backs over the receivers. Like Kamara, he's top dog for me. Honestly, Todd Gurley might be top dog for me as well. I'm going to put those guys ahead of the expensive receivers. But if there's a lineup where I don't play the expensive running backs, if I play like Connor and Peterson, then maybe I'll fit in some of these expensive receivers. But for now, we're going to look to the mid-tier, especially to fill out my 5 core plays. We're going to look to the mid-tier. I always like to stack quarterback with my receiver, especially in tournaments. Love Jarvis Landry here at 6,300 against the Saints. Jarvis Landry got a ton of targets from Tyrod. Week 1, he got 15 targets, caught 7 of them for 106 yards. I believe he put up like 20 DraftKings points week 1. Landry's just going to be a guy that's going to get targets. He's always a great play on DraftKings where it's PPR, where you get a point per reception. Landry's going to get a ton of catches every week. The targets are going to be there. And a potential shootout against the Saints. With how bad the Saints defense looked week 1, I want to target them this week, so I love Tyrod, love Landry. Expect the Browns to be playing from behind, going to have to throw the ball. That's definitely one of my favorite quarterback to receiver stacks this week. And it's relatively cheap with Tyrod just being 5,900 and Landry just being 6,300. Landry is one of my favorite plays in that 6K range. But you do have other guys there that are probably going to be pretty popular. You got Emmanuel Sanders, who's coming off a great week 1 performance. 6,200, he got priced up a little bit, but he's going to be a guy a lot of people look to, definitely like Sanders. But I'm going to play Landry over Sanders, especially in lineups where I have Tyrod. But like in this 5K range, if we want to look here for some receiver options, Josh Gordon could be a play depending on how many snaps he gets against the Saints, but obviously we don't know that right now. I believe he only played like 20, or he was supposed to play 20 snaps week 1. I think he played a lot more than that though. But Josh Gordon, too cheap for his talent level, 5,800. Kenny Stills coming off a great week 1 performance. Could be a guy we look to at 5,700 if we're trying to go a little bit cheaper at this position. Chris Hogan, very tempting to roster him at 5,400, especially depending on who Jalen Ramsey's going to cover. That could potentially open up some targets for Hogan, and he's very cheap at 5,400. Don't know if we have to really go there on this slate, though. I don't know if I really want to target Jacksonville on a 13-game slate. Would probably just get up to Kenny Stills. But maybe if you're going really contrarian and if you have Brady in a lineup, you could stack him with Hogan, hoping Ramsey maybe shuts down Gronk or Ramsey shuts down a different Patriots receiver. But like other cheap options we could possibly consider, Deshaun Jackson coming off a great week 1 performance. Don't think I want to go to him, though, at 4,900, especially if people are going to chase that performance and if he's going to wind up being somewhat popular. Don't think I want to go there. Quincy Enunwa looked really good Monday night. He could definitely be a guy you look to at 4,700 as a cheap option. He got plenty of targets from Sam Darnold. Definitely like Enunwa here. Devin Funchess, 4,700, another cheap value play, especially since Greg Olson's probably going to miss some time. Funchess could be a value option you also look to. But I think that's it for like the cheap plays. You do have Randall Cobb here, 4,600. If Rodgers is playing this week, I do like Randall Cobb, but really only going to target him if Rodgers is in. If Rodgers isn't at, or if Rodgers is out and Kaiser starts, I'm probably just going to be fading Green Bay in general. I think that's it for receiver, though, at least for the plays that I see that really catch my eye. Let's go ahead and move on to tight end. I think tight end this week is definitely a position I do want to pay down. I don't love the expensive options. Like Gronk against the Jaguars, I think I can fade Gronk this week, even though 7K might still be too cheap of a price for Gronk for how talented the guy is. I like the cheap options at tight end. We got Jordan Reed at 5K. Great matchup against the Colts. Really like Jordan Reed, especially if you're playing Alex Smith. You could pair Smith with Reed. Definitely like Reed. But like there's some really good just straight up punt plays this week, like sub 4K. You got Jared Cook coming off a great week 1 performance. Gets another good matchup against Denver. Their defense is not nearly as good as it was past years. At 3,600, Jared Cook might be one of the more popular options at tight end. I definitely like him. George Kittle saw a lot of targets week 1. Jimmy Garoppolo was looking his way a ton. You could go to Kittle at 3,800 if you're looking for value at this position. But the guy that I really like is Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith is very cheap, just 3,100. We already know Delaney Walker is going to have to miss some time for the Titans. So Jonnu Smith's going to be the starting tight end for the Titans just moving forward. And we know Mariota, he likes to target tight ends a ton. Jonnu Smith, this guy's really athletic, just a really good player in general. Doesn't get enough playing time because obviously the Titans have Delaney Walker, and who is also a really great tight end. But since Walker's out, Smith should be seeing a really increased role, a heavy workload, should see plenty of targets. Like this matchup against the Texans, I like Jonnu Smith, one of my favorite cheap tight ends. If you're looking to go cheap at this position, which I think is what we're going to want to do this week, I like him at 3,100. But that's really it for tight end for the cheap plays. I like Cook, I like Kittle, and I like Smith. Those are probably my 3 favorite tight ends this week. You can obviously target the Browns, target the Giants when it comes to opposing tight ends. I know the Giants are playing Sunday Night Football, so they're not on the main slate. The Saints are playing Cleveland, so we could look to a guy like Ben Watson, 3,400 if you're going cheap. We know the Browns struggle against tight ends, but I think I would rather just go down to Jonnu Smith for 300 cheaper. Let's go ahead and move on to defense for this week, guys. This is another position where I think we can find some value, especially, I mentioned it earlier, if Rodgers is out this week, my favorite value play at defense is easily the Vikings. Without Aaron Rodgers, the Packers are just so bad, so the Vikings at 2,600, they have a great defense. They're going to put plenty of pressure on Deshaun Kaiser. If Rodgers is out, obviously, make sure you take note of that. We don't know yet if Rodgers is going to play. If he's out, love the Vikings at 2,600, a team I think you can definitely consider as a cheap defense. You've also got the Texans right there at 2,600, who could be another defense depending on if Mariota has to miss time. I know he got injured week 1, so if Mariota is out, we could possibly consider the Texans at the same price tag. The Jets at home, 2,500, a cheap defense you've got. I always like to target cheap defenses at home. The Jets against the Dolphins, I think you could go there, 2,500. With how bad Deshaun Watson looked week 1, we could possibly consider the Titans at 2,400, another cheap defense at home. That could be a team we look to, maybe going up a little bit in price range, looking for some other defenses. I don't think the Jets are going to be that great of a team this year, even though they looked good week 1. So maybe the Dolphins as well in that game, 3,100 against the Jets. We could possibly go there. Blake Bortles is not a good quarterback, so the Patriots at 3K against Bortles, who we know will turn the ball over, you could possibly consider. The Patriots, with how bad the Lions looked, you've got the 49ers at home against the Lions. Stafford just looked atrocious Monday night, so maybe the 49ers as a cheap option you could go to. Just really like the cheap plays here. If you're paying up, though, my favorite expensive defense is by far the Chargers, especially if Nathan Peterman starts again for the Bills. Peterman just looks so bad against the Ravens week 1. Love the Chargers if you can fit him in, but I think I'm going to prioritize the cheap defenses this week, obviously highlighting some of the defenses I mentioned. Those are going to be some of the defenses I'm on pretty heavy this week. But yeah, guys, that's really it for today's video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this week 2 video. Hopefully it did help you. As the week goes on, I'll be talking about the slate on Twitter, so if you guys have not followed me on Twitter yet, make sure you do that. My Twitter is down in the description, at the DFS_GOAT. You can give me a follow there. You can always talk to me on Twitter, DM me if you have any questions just about the slate. Always active on Twitter. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Make sure you leave a like on the video. If you have not subscribed yet, make sure you do subscribe as well. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and good luck on this week 2 slate. Peace.